Hello, everyone. We're just waiting for some more people to join. We'll begin in about 5 minutes. Thank you. Hello, everyone. We'll just get started by the time I finish my introduction. So everyone, more people may have joined. Hello, everyone. I am Neha, the founder of Aritram. Today, we have with us Dr. Vaishali Deshmukh, who will be conducting this session on the teen mind. Dr. Deshmukh is a pediatrician and has done her post graduation in adolescent medicine. She is in charge of the 9 to 9 clinic, a special clinic for adolescents and teens. She also works with Kirloskar Foundation for their CSR projects and is associated with many NGOs. She's involved in research related to body image and growing up, and her papers have been published in index journals. She's a master trainer and a scientific coordinator for various national adolescent and teen modules of the Indian Academy of Pediatrics. She has been a PG guide for DNB Family Medicine. Her Marathi book, Teenage.com, has received Maharashtra State Government's 2017 Literary Award Yadunath Thatte Wangmay Puraskar. It is a great pleasure to have you with us, Dr. Deshmukh. Before I start the session, if you have any doubts, you can ask them in the chat, or you can ask them after the session. So over to you, Dr. Deshmukh. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure being with all of you all. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible.
Yes. So I would really like it if you all interact during the session. So Neha, will it be all right if they can unmute themselves in between?
Yeah,
Or maybe
sure.
they can raise their hands. Maybe you can raise your hands and then you can talk, because I wouldn't like it to be a lecture.
Yeah, sure. Everyone can
um,
unmute themselves whenever they want, so it's okay.
yes, so you can raise your hands and then you can unmute and say whatever you want to say. Like you can comment, you can share your experiences, or you can ask your questions, and you can interrupt me anytime. No problem at all.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
so I'm taking it that you all are teenagers and young people. So I'm aware that some of you may have just crossed the teenage label, but nowadays, teenagers and young people is the term that we use. So adolescents and young people. So everyone up to 25 years is generally considered to be still in the transitional phase that teenagers are. So all of you are in a transitional phase, uh, and since it is transitional, it is transient, right? So some of you are, at different stage as far as your chronological age is concerned, like actual age is concerned. Whereas when we talk about development or maturity, everyone will be at a different place altogether, because we are not robots, and so it's a good thing, uh, because that's what defines us as human beings or separates us from other animals or from technology. So you're transitioning in various areas. So just think about it. Whenever I say a word, just think about how you're transitioning in that sphere of life. So you're transitioning as far as your body is concerned, correct? So your body that was there a few years ago and where you are now and where you will be in a few years is changing. So you are somewhere in between. So you are transitioning in your body. As far as your thoughts are concerned, you're transitioning. Yes. The way you used to think when you were little children, the way you are thinking maybe even 2 years back, and the way you're thinking now is different. So you're transitioning in your thoughts, emotions. Yes, even in the emotions, you're transitioning. When it comes to your rights and responsibilities, you are transitioning. Probably you are aware of your rights. Probably you are more aware of your responsibilities. We don't know. And that is again changing every day, every year. And when it comes to relationships, you are again in the transitional phase. So the relationship could be with your family, with your parents. It could be with your friends or peers. It could be a romantic relationship. So even that is changing over a period of time. And so in short, you are transitioning from childhood to adulthood. Okay, so childhood is on one side, on one end, adulthood is somewhere else, and you are in between. So that can sometimes be very confusing. It can be confusing for you. Is it confusing for you? Uh, does it confuse you sometimes that whether you should take decisions on your own? Does it
Yes.
confuse you sometimes that whether you should take help from someone else? Like sometimes you may feel that, oh, I'm grown up now, why should I take help of my parents or of my teachers? And sometimes you feel that, oh, no, 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 I don't think I'm big enough to do this. So it is confusing, and at times your brain might behave either way. Sometimes there are situations when you may not be able to handle it at all, and you will be like little children, and sometimes you may be very mature in some of the situations and be able to take decisions like an adult. And it also confuses your family and your parents, because your parents have seen you grow up. So you're growing up in front of their eyes, and for them, you're always their little children. So it is difficult for them to see you as an independent, mature adult who has his own life, who has his own thought process, and who wants his own independence, right? So it is confusing. But again, as I said initially, the word transient phase itself is reassuring, because it is transient, it is going to go away after some time. Right. So, so let's see why, why we have to go through all these changes and what exactly happens in our body. So, although we have named the talk as teen mind, let's call it a young mind, or youth, a mind of a youth. So, so the transitions, as the transitions are happening outside around you, the transitions are also happening within you. So multiple systems are transitioning. So the most prominent being the endocrine system, or the system of hormones. You have probably learned that in your school and college. So lots of hormones are changing within your body. The other system that is undergoing a major change is the reproductive system. And the third system which is undergoing a major change is the nervous system, especially the brain. So today, let's focus on the changes which are happening within our brain. Now tell me, when do you think our brain matures? When does it become like an adult brain? At what age? You can take a guess. It doesn't have to be a perfect answer. Yes, Asifa?
Yeah, I don't know. I would say that age is not necessary, but I would guess like I would say like 20.
20.
Yeah,
Yes.
but
Okay.
it's really, yeah, it's like my opinion. I would just say the number because you
Sure,
are
sure.
asking.
So roughly 20 years you feel, right?
Yeah, but
There's
it's
nothing
it
right or
depends.
wrong. So
Yeah, it depends on the person. It's depend on, maybe he's 14 and he's
correct,
mature
correct.
to
That's true. That's
20.
true. That's
Yeah.
true. But on an average, you feel it is 20 years at which the brain matures. Any other
Yeah.
guesses? So when it comes to the size of the brain, most of the adult size has reached by the age of 5 years itself. So if you take the head circumference of a 5-year-old child and an adult, you will find that it is, there is very little difference. But what changes is the internal structure of the brain. So the hardware has almost formed, but the software is changing. And it is undergoing a lot of major changes at this age, during teenage and young age. Okay. So, so no other guesses. So see, can you think of it from the point of say law? When are you allowed to vote? In India, it is 18 years, right? You're allowed to marry at the age of 18 years for girls and 21 years for boys. Any idea when you're allowed to buy alcohol in India, especially in Maharashtra? The age is 25 years. So even the law is confused about when exactly the brain matures. So we have to take a rough cutoff, and so we generally take the outside cutoff. So more and more studies are being done, and we are coming to know that the brain is not really maturing when we thought it is maturing. So earlier it was, at the age of 16, they used to say that the child becomes like his father. He can wear his father's cap. But then they thought it is 18 years, and then they thought it is 21 years. Then the accepted age was 25 years. And now they say that even up to 30 to 35 years, the brain is still undergoing changes and it's still maturing. But definitely the process has started, and the process is becoming pretty, it is taking speed during young age. Um, so let me just tell you about, let's just remember the parts of our brain. You all know those parts, but let me just recollect all those. So the first part I would talk about is the brain stem. The brain stem is the part which actually allows us to live. Without the brainstem, we won't be able to live, because all the vital functions are controlled by the brainstem. So be it the beating of heart or the breathing or the blood pressure and things like that, everything is controlled by the brainstem. So that is active right since the time when we were formed within our mother's womb. So even when we were fetus inside the mother's womb, this brainstem was very active. And then the next part is the midbrain. And that part has other small little parts such as thalamus and amygdala. You've probably heard these names. And this is the seat of emotions. And this is the part which lets us survive. See, as soon as a baby is born, it starts breathing on its own. Its heart is already beating, but it has to work to get its food, to gain attention of the elders. So it starts crying and showing emotions. So this is a state of emotions, and it gives us, there are 7 emotions which are considered to be basic emotions. So does anyone have any idea which are the basic emotions in our brain? So out of 7, even if you tell me 5, 4, yes.
Yeah, I would say basically is crying, laughing, the emotional that we feel in our mind.
So what is the emotion when you're laughing?
Like happy, sad.
Happiness, correct. So it's happiness.
Yeah.
When you're crying, it is being sad.
Yeah, it's being sad. It's being depressed, like depressed also. It's being like, how to say that? Like depressed, anxiety, have anxiety about something.
Yes. Correct. So there are multiple emotions, and there are various shades of emotions. So let me just tell you what are the emotions. So it is happiness, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, disgust, and love. So these are the basic emotions which all of us face, all of us experience. And then the other emotions are combinations of all these emotions or finer parts of these emotions. So yeah, the midbrain is the seat of emotions, and that is where you feel all the emotions. And you also learn the basic survival instinct of fight, flight, or freeze. So whenever there is a danger in front of us, the brainstem kicks into action and it tells us whether we should fight the situation, whether we should run away from it, or whether we should play dead and survive the situation. And then the next part, or the most important one, is the cerebral cortex, which is present in only the evolved animals. Right, the part of the brain which has lots of folds in it. So that is the cerebral cortex, and that is present in evolved animals. And this sort of gives us a value addition, and it also makes us more complex animals as compared to the simpler animals. And of course, it is a seat of thinking as against the seat of emotions. And there is part of this cortex which is called prefrontal cortex, which is right here in the front part of it. And that is the manager, okay, or that is the regulator of the rest of the brain. So now you know the parts of brain. Let's see how they evolve. So as I told you, brainstem is present as soon as we were conceived in the tummy, and we started developing the nervous system. Brainstem started getting active. Midbrain is at its peak during teenage and youth. And we said that it is a seat of emotions. So you have probably experienced, or you're still experiencing, very strong emotions. You're probably experiencing a pendulum of emotions, where the emotions go from one extreme to the other. Most of the times when you express the emotions, they are very strong. They're expressed very strongly, or they're felt very strong. Right? And so it can be challenging, because the emotions are without any control. Because right now the cerebral cortex or the prefrontal cortex is still maturing. It is still in its in the phase of maturation. It has not completed its maturation. So what the teenage brain or the young brain wants is, it is very curious. It takes a lot of risks. Okay, it also seeks rewards. So and the rewards can be healthy or unhealthy. So if you achieve something, you feel good. And why do you feel good? Because there is something called as a dopamine rush that happens. So the chemical dopamine actually helps you, makes you feel very happy and very satisfied. And whenever the brain feels happy and satisfied, it wants it, it craves it more and more. It wants those experiences more and more. So if you are getting these sort of dopamine rushes or dopamine bursts from some other things, such as, having healthy relationships, or maybe from your hobbies or sports or exercise, or creating something, then that gives you, or even helping other people. All these things give you a healthy rush of dopamine. But then if you don't get all that, your brain seeks other rewards and then you go for unhealthy ways. So can you tell me a few unhealthy ways which young people go to gain this sense of happiness? Yes? Yes,
Yeah,
Neha, would you like to tell me?
Yeah, so there could be two ways of dealing with it. One could be with addictions, so could be alcohol, and there's
Yes.
a thrill in seeking something that you're not allowed to have. And the other part could be going towards the negative side. So if someone is bullying you, you can go for negative ways like binge eating, like eating disorders or depression. So it's like there's some thrill in being depressed too. So,
Yes, of course, of course. Yes, correct. So all these are unhealthy ways. Addictions, maybe risk taking, as you said. So it can be, driving vehicles at high speed, violence. Yeah, Asifa, would you like to add something?
yeah, please. I would say also abusing or maybe controlling the child when he's like in a teenage age, or maybe having too much with the parents, going through like a divorce or something like that. So that could be a huge problem for a child to face in
Yes.
that age.
Yes. So sometimes you could be at the receiving end of the abuse, but sometimes you end up being an abuser and start getting pleasure out of it. Yes. Um, yeah. So these are there can be so many negative, unhealthy ways of getting rewards. But your brain seeks rewards and it wants some rewards. So we have to be aware of that. So we have to be aware that I need to find out healthy ways of rewarding my brain. Otherwise, my brain is going to go and find unhealthy ways to reward itself. Hmm? Yeah. So what happens is at this age, since the emotional brain is very active, whereas the prefrontal cortex is still not mature enough, what happens is the situation is like a car without brakes, or maybe a classroom without a teacher. So you can imagine the situation when, remember your classes, and when the teacher was yet to come in the class, how was the situation? So there used to be mayhem and everyone was running around, shouting, jumping, throwing things. And as soon as the teacher entered, everyone sat in their own places and everything was quiet. So it's like that. Before the teacher comes, uh, the class is completely disrupted and in disharmony. Similarly, our brain is completely disrupted, or our emotions are without any control, and it confuses the whole situations. You want to say something? Yeah.
Yeah, who's the teacher then on our brain? Like the teacher is the who is taking, like when the teacher is coming to the class that everyone
It's the
is
prefrontal cortex. It's the prefrontal cortex.
ah, okay.
Thoughts which control the emotions.
Okay.
It's the thoughts which give us rationality. They put
Okay.
rationality in our behavior. They tell us what is rational and what is irrational. And if the thoughts are not mature enough, then the emotions are going to go haywire.
Okay, thank you so
And
much.
so teenagers and young people are more vulnerable to a lot of things, such as some of the situations have already been mentioned just now. So let me just narrate them again. Addictions, mental ill health, violence, eating disorders, risk-taking behaviors, and wrong decisions. And that wrong decision can be unsafe sex. It can be wrong career decisions, It can be a wrong decision about anything, say choice of your clothes, or about your health, about exercise, anything. So young people, young minds are very vulnerable because the midbrain is so very active. The emotions are so strong. They are so erratic, and they are not yet controlled by the manager or the prefrontal cortex, right? Yeah. And then comes the cerebral cortex. Now, it doesn't happen in, one after the other. It's not like a relay race that one person runs and then it, passes over the baton and then the next person starts running. It's not really so. Everything is happening parallelly, but the speed is different. So initially the brainstem is already very active in the teenage and young youth. The midbrain is very, very active, but the cerebral cortex is not sleeping. It is also developing and maturing. It's just that it is maturing a little later and a little slower than the rest of the brain. And the thoughts are changing from something called as concrete thoughts to abstract thoughts. So let me give you an example. Concrete thoughts are like black and white, here and now. So when we are thinking concretely, we don't think about the consequences of our actions or the reasons behind our actions. Or we don't think very long term. We think, immediate, in the immediate time frame or the immediate circle of our being. And when it comes to abstract thinking, it is the opposite of that. Abstract thinking can be something which is not right in front of our eyes, but we can still imagine it, we can still conclude it. So, let's talk about something like eating junk food. So all of us love to eat junk food. We order junk food or we cook junk food, or as Neha just said, we sometimes eat junk food as a reward to our brain. Sometimes whenever we are celebrating anything, the thing that comes in front of us is, the first thing that comes in front of us is food, and that too junk food. Like we never celebrate with roti sabji, or we never celebrate with something that we routinely eat. We want to eat something which is really toxic to us, or which is not really considered to be very healthy. So eating junk. So when you are a teenager and when you are eating junk, and if someone tells you that don't eat junk, you will end up being a diabetic at the age of 50, or you will get a heart attack at the age of 52. He will not really understand anything. He will say, oh, 50 is too far away. By then I will change my habits. So right now, let me eat this because I want to enjoy eating. I want to celebrate with everyone. I want to make myself happy right now. So is there some way that you can convince a teenager not to eat junk food, using the fact that he is a concrete thinker? He will understand only the immediate things that are going to happen. Anyone? Let me see who all are there. Would anyone like to participate? Anyone like to comment on this? Can you use any other way of telling a teenager not to eat junk? Let's think of skin. Yeah, Neha.
Probably it's like immediate obesity. So it's like if you start eating junk food a lot, you may gain weight immediately, and obesity could be a short-term thing that you could make teenagers think about.
Correct, correct. And obesity has its own implications in teenage. So you won't be able to wear clothes which you want to. You won't be able to, you know, put your photos on Instagram and without editing. So obesity can lead to body image issues, and that can be an immediate deterrent to the adolescent, and he will probably stop eating that junk food. Or you can also say that eating junk food will make you have lots of pimples, or your hair will be won't be very shiny and it will be brittle. So healthy food will make it that, and so that he will take that option, he will make that choice when he or she knows the immediate implications of his food. Similarly, I'm sure you all face peer pressure at some time or the other. So how will you handle that peer pressure? Because you know that when a friend pressurizes you to do something, you are pressured to do that because you don't want to break the friendship. You don't want to you don't want that fear of missing out and being thrown out of the group. So you feel like doing what they're asking you to do, even if you don't want to do it from inside. So is there any way in which you can resist this peer pressure? Have you ever come across such a situation? Yes, Neha.
So I guess when teenagers hang out with their friends who may not be a good influence, they don't talk to their parents about it, and it's kind of a teenage habit of not talking to their parents. And I think they just fear what their parents might say. So if a parent and a child relationship is open, like if the parent learns to accept the fact and just listen to the child, they can maybe stop the child when from getting too deep into things that recovery will be difficult.
Yes, correct. Yeah, what you're saying is very right. That without breaking the friendship, the teenager can, or the young person can still manage to not get influenced by the negative things, and at the same time maintain the friendship, and maybe even help that friend come out of that the wrong habit. So peer pressure are all these. I mean, peer pressure is something which can be a challenge at this age. Um, so when it comes to relationships and sexual experimentation, I see a lot of young people going in for these experiences without thinking of the long-term consequences. And so what happens is, for the immediate pleasure, or for sometimes it is just for competition. I mean, many times many young people feel left out if they do not have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or if they have not experienced sex, and so they go for these experiences without realizing what can be the long-term effects of that behavior. And of course, there are a lot of short-term effects, such as unwanted pregnancy, but sometimes they take precautions about that, but there are a lot of long-term consequences too. Let's not get into the details of all that, but the thing is, initially you can't think of a long-term consequence, but now that you are almost at the fag end of teenage, you are almost coming out of that teenage, your prefrontal cortex is becoming more and more active. That there are, you have experienced a lot which is adding to that, and so you are probably you will be able to take the correct decision and think more rationally. So gradually your prefrontal cortex has started taking control. Okay, it has started helping you to manage your emotions. It has started helping you to identify other people's emotions and thinking from their point of view, which is called empathy. Yes, it is also helping you to regulate your thoughts. So probably you all have come through a lot of choppy waters by now, and that journey has made you stronger. Do you agree with this statement? Has the journey so far made you stronger? You can just raise your hands if you don't want to say anything. Has it made you more resilient? Has it made you, say, more experienced? Or has it made you less complacent, maybe ready for challenges? Has it made you ready for challenges? Has it also made you a better judge of character? And has it also, okay, Asifa, would you like me to repeat the question? The question is, you have come through a lot of choppy waters and turbulent times so far because of all those experiences that you have gone through, and all the challenges that you have faced, and all that journey, the whole journey has probably made you stronger, less complacent, more resilient, or more experienced and a better judge of character. And it has also helped you for in self-realization, understanding your own strengths and weaknesses, right? So the journey, even though it is difficult, even though it is challenging, it is necessary. It is also unavoidable. It is part of life. and ultimately it is useful to all of us. So let me tell you a story. And after that story, I am going to stop, in the sense, I would like you all to contribute or ask questions. So the name of the story is Everything Happens for a Reason. In Marathi, it is called Je Hoto Te Bhalyasati Hoto. So you have probably heard this story. Once there was a king and he had a very trusted minister, and they were great friends. And this minister would always say, that was his favorite statement, everything happens for a reason. And the king used to get very irritated because of that. So one day, when they were talking, chatting, and the king was doing something, and he suddenly cut his little finger. And the minister said, "Oh, it's okay. Everything happens for a reason." So the king got really angry. By now he was really irritated with him for saying this statement again and again. And he said, "Why are you saying that? I've cut my finger. It's hurting me. And you're saying everything happens for a reason. What is the reason for this?" And then, without letting the minister explain himself, he put him into prison. Kings can sometimes be eccentric. So he put this minister in prison. And the next day, the king wanted to go out, for a hunt. Usually, this minister would accompany him, but since he was in prison, the king went alone. And somehow he went deeper into the jungles. And since he was alone, he was very disoriented. And he was caught by some tribals in that jungle. And the tribals wanted to kill him in front of their god. So there was a big ceremony, and then they brought the king in front of the god. And then they started checking him out, because they wanted a perfect person to kill as an offering to the god. And then they realized that, oh, this king has cut his finger. So we can't use this person. He's imperfect. And so they let him go. And suddenly the king remembered the minister's words. Everything happens for a reason. And he came back and he released the minister and he said, "I'm really sorry. And I know, I actually experienced the truth in your words. So yes, it happened for a reason. Otherwise, they would have killed me. But tell me, I put you in prison. And now why? Was there any reason behind that? How was it good for you?" What do you think the minister said? Can you complete the story, anyone? Yes. Yes. Asifa, Neha, both of you can say. Yeah.
I go first. Again, maybe the person in the present, he was perfect and he will be killed if, like, he is perfect and they will take him and they will kill him.
Correct. Neha, you want to say something different?
No, just the same.
Yes, just the same. Yeah. So because if this minister was not in prison, he would have accompanied the king for the hunt. And since he was perfect and the king was imperfect, he would have been killed in front of the god. So his life was saved because he was in prison. So everything happens for a reason. So whenever we think of anything, as when we ask ourselves why, let's say that everything happens for a reason. So thank you so much. It was really nice interacting with you. I have purposely, kept it short. I have not gone into the details of the brain development and all that. I have only spoken about the relevant points. So now, if any of you, the grown-ups or the youngsters, any of you have any questions, queries, or experiences to share, you can do that.
Yeah, I learned so much in these 30 minutes, and thank you so much for explaining this to us and being here. And it was amazing. And I just want to say something about my experience of reacting about something, that it's always depend on the situation that I'm going through, how to decide how to react and how to, control the stuff. Because there's like some situation that we are in, we don't even think, we don't even have the time to think. We just like do something irrational, and we know it's already bad and irrational, and we can't do that, but we have no other choices. And it may be like in our brain we think that there's like no other choices, or maybe there's already there's like so plenty of choices, but we can't see because we are like in a situation that we have fear, we are like depressed, and like we have like so many things to be afraid of, and we just jump to the next step, and we don't think about the consequences. And but we already know what the consequences will be, because we already saw. Because every time, like about like a personal experience, every time I was like crossing a border, like I come from Iraq. I was like a refugee, and when I crossed the Great border, I knew that Greece will be the same, but I had no choice. I had to jump. I knew I was like I understand the situation. I know, and like I was kind of mature for that challenge. But I had no choice. There were like police like behind me, and I have just one way, and I know if I go, I might be driven, I might be eaten by like big animals in the jungle. So yeah, this kind of sometimes this kind of situation are so confused.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah. So thanks, Asifa, for sharing this experience. And the experience you shared was something of about survival. Yeah, it was a life and death situation. So whenever there is a life and death situation, the midbrain or the emotional brain comes into play. So there we are only thinking about survival. So we go for fight, flight, or freeze. So these are the basic instincts, and we go for the basic reaction. We do not respond. We do not think. We do not use our cerebral cortex. We use only our midbrain, and we react with the emotions because there is no time to think about it. Because, right, that is the time when you have to just survive. So so the man initially, when he was not very civilized, that time such situations were more frequent, and even now the situations like yours are sometimes there when it is a question of life and death, but it is not always so. So when there is a question of life and death, there is no option but to react and go by our basic instincts. But when it is not a question of survival, in fact, most of the time, it is not a question of survival. Like, say, we are getting late for office or college. It is not a question of survival, but we make it a question of survival. If someone, snubs us, he or she doesn't acknowledge us or ignores us, it is not a question of survival, but we make it a question of survival and we react. And sometimes even exams. So they are not a question of survival, but we still react with fight, flight, and freeze. And then everything goes haywire, because that is the time when we have to use our cerebral cortex. That is the time when we have to use the fact that we are an evolved animal. Our lives are much more complex. It is not just a question of survival. We have so many other emotions, and we have so many other goals and things like that, and we have so many options with us. So what can we do? Your question is very valid. So what can we do? So one thing is that try and categorize it as whether it is a situation of life and death or not. So if it is not a question of life and death, say you have had a breakup, it is not a question of life and death. So then let me think, let me use my cerebral cortex and not go through with my instincts, my basic instincts. They are not needed right now. It is not an emergency situation. So then I pause. Then I go through the steps. Like, for example, there is a mnemonic called POWER, where you identify the problem. P is you identify the problem. Then O is you weigh the options. Okay. You find out the options. Then W is weigh the options, which is a better option, which will cause less damage. And then you elect one option. E is elect. And then you revisit or re-examine your option after you have used it. So then you go through the steps when you know that it is not a question of life and death. You first find out what exactly is the problem. What is the problem? Many times we do not identify the problem. Many times we do not define the problem. We just say, I am feeling bad. I am feeling sad. But what is it that making me sad? What is it about the situation that making me sad? For example, if I have had a breakup, am I feeling jilted? Am I feeling inferior? Am I having doubts about myself? Am I feeling guilty that I didn't put enough of myself in the relationship? Or am I feeling ashamed of facing people? Am I scared of people's reactions? So let me identify what is the problem exactly, what exactly is the problem, and then I'll be able to find options. If I just vaguely say that, oh, I have had a breakup and I'm just going through a very rough patch, that will not help you solve anything. This is just an example, of course. And then you find multiple options. So when you're finding options, go for any option. I mean, just identify any option in spite, irrespective of whether it is sensible, whether it is, a good option or not. Don't think about all that. Just write down all the options. And then once you have written down all the options, then now you weigh the options. Now you see, okay, this is possible. This is not possible. This is possible, but it will have worse consequences. Instead, I should go for this option. And then you come to a conclusion, use that option. And this does not mean you will always take the correct decision. Okay, even at the end of this, you may end up choosing a wrong option, and which is the reason why you have to revisit it. You have to find out, you have to re-examine how you went through the process. Did I define the problem correctly? Did I consider all the options? Did I weigh the options correctly, the risks and the benefits? And did I choose correctly? And did I actually enact the option properly? And then next time we can improve on this. So it is a learning process. It is something which is a habit that your brain goes through. So when you go through a meadow, sometimes there are ways where the people have walked again and again, and that has sort of defined a road, even though nobody has actually made a road there. So habits are something like that. And since your brain is still maturing, it is also an advantage. So it's not just the fact that it is, it's not that you will only have wrong consequences or bad consequences out of it. You can actually make use of the fact that your brain is still developing, and you can put in good habits which are again going to become more and more strong if you keep on using them again and again, because this is how you reinforce the circuits in the brain. So first thing, identify if it is a question of life and death or not. If not, go through the steps of defining the problem, finding options, weighing the options, and electing one option. Revisit your option and find out whether you've taken the correct decision or not. And next time, think over it and better yourself. If you do this again and again and again, only then, even in an acute situation, you will be able to follow these steps without even thinking. Okay, so initially you may find this very artificial. Initially you may feel that this is not how we do anything. We go with our gut feelings or with our past experiences. But even when we say gut feelings, somewhere our brain is going through all these processes without understanding. Subconsciously we're going through all these processes. So why not go through it consciously? So when we go through it consciously, our brain gets used to it, the circuits are reinforced, and next time when such a situation comes in front of us again, all these steps are very easily taken by us, even under stressful condition, even when we are mentally not perfect at that time. So I heard you when you said sometimes we are depressed, sometimes we are too agitated to take the correct decision. But if we have made a habit of going through these habits, if we have made a habit of revisiting our choices and reinforcing the correct circuits in our brain, we will be able to take correct decisions even under stress. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it helps.
Anything else? Anybody else would like to share their experiences? Or yeah, Neha?
I just had a question. So our generation has a lot of exposure to the internet, and there's like information available on every topic. So it may be right, may be wrong. And one thing that we do is we try to relate with everything. So if I search about some particular disorder, I might start seeing symptoms in myself. So how do you find a balance? Like, and some people think it's cool to have those disorders. Like, if someone, like, you might start seeking attention if you're not getting attention somewhere else at home, say. So you start seeking attention through those things. So how do you deal with those situations? How do you stop incorrect information from uh, getting your thoughts biased or something?
Okay. Yes. So just as your immature brain can be a bane or a boon, this information explosion can also be a bane or a boon. So we are benefited definitely by all the information, but as you rightly described, it also confuses us a lot, especially because there is such a lot of contradictory information available on the internet, and we tend to pick up what we want to take. So even nowadays, even in our clinics, the patients have already Googled about their symptoms and they already have a provisional diagnosis with them. They have already found out about the course of treatment that they would like to go through. And then when we say something different, and we say that, oh, nothing is wrong with you, they are quite surprised, and then they go shopping for other doctors. So a lot of information can mislead us many times, and uh, the symptoms which are described on the internet are sometimes very vague, like if you say that, okay, I feel low at times, and I have body ache, and I sometimes get a headache, and I have trouble falling asleep. No, these symptoms can be symptoms of any illness, right from no illness to something serious. So most of the times the symptoms are very, very vague, and its best thing is to go to a person who has actually learned all this, who has actually understood the process, the pathology that goes behind any illness. So that person, the doctor, will be able to, or the psychologist will be able to identify whether the symptoms are pathological or they are physiological. Okay, so whether they are just normal part of our daily life, or whether it is something which has deviated from normal. So the symptoms, so it's very difficult for a lay person to understand that. Otherwise, everybody would have become a doctor. Now, why do people have to study for 8 to 10 years and then be able to diagnose a heart attack? So the information and knowledge are two different things. So information is available. Knowledge is not really available. And knowledge is something at everyone's discretion. So even if it is available, it can be taken in different ways by different people. So you are asking me how to, so what exactly would you like me to elaborate on? Can you repeat your question, Neha?
Yeah, so like you said, our reactions are based on our emotions. So if we think logically about this, we may know that whatever I am doing is wrong. So, or whatever the information is does not actually relate with me. So how do you control that emotional brain who's always trying to say that that is what I'm going through, that is what I'm going through?
Correct. Yes. So, one way of looking at it is that this is one of the unhealthy coping mechanism. So you're going through something and you're trying to cope with it by various means. So this is one of the ways in which you're trying to cope with it. You are trying to find out everything about it. You are trying to label it, and you're trying to find out what you can do about it. And that can sometimes mislead you. So when you realize that this is one of the coping mechanisms, you will try to find out other healthy coping mechanisms. So don't focus on not finding information on the internet, rather focus on finding other ways of coping with the disease. So can you tell me a few other ways of coping with any illness? How do you cope with an illness? Yes, Neha.
Yeah, could be like in India, yoga and meditations. Like there are so many people offering courses and really trained and good experts. So, and that's kind of something that we can always go through. And something is talking to other people, getting other people's opinion on your condition.
Well, again, that can sometimes be questionable because people can again mislead you about the diagnosis or the treatment. But yeah, talking to someone or expressing your emotions, writing a diary, and uh, everything that we talked about, which gives us a dopamine rush, will help us cope with the situation. So, exercising, sports, hobby, talking to other people, and best of all, helping other people. So, Neha, I mean, I'm sure you can share this experience of how helping other people has been a coping mechanism for you. How has it helped you? Would you like to share with us?
Yeah, so it's actually it's just an amateur company that I'm starting. It's not developed, and I'm not exactly helping people right now. But just the fact that I'm doing something for others makes me feel good about myself. So there are times when I'm just studying and nothing is making sense, and I feel like there's no point to my life. And then like if I'm doing something that is beyond me, that's not for me, it makes me feel better. So,
Uh,
I think Neha is finished. She usually has, yeah, she usually has technical issues for
Great.
her.
So yes. So imagine how it has made you feel good. Just the thought that I'm helping others. So we may not really see the results as such in front of us. So we don't really have to, count the number of people we have fed or something like that. But helping others is considered to be the best thing that gives us a dopamine rush. And that is the best coping mechanism. So whenever you find all these other coping mechanisms, automatically you go less towards the unhealthy coping mechanisms. So sometimes what happens is if you focus on not using the unhealthy coping mechanisms, you focus on not going on the internet and finding the information, then you do go to that, you do take that way. Because what they say is the negative things that you say, they impact your brain more than the positive things. So if I tell you don't think about a yellow elephant with pink tail, you will think about a yellow elephant with pink tail. So if you say don't go to the internet and find the information, you will go to the internet and find the information. So rather than telling ourselves what not to do, give ourselves the options, the healthy options, and automatically the unhealthy options will fade into oblivion. Asifa, you want to say something?
Yeah. So I just wanna also answer the question that you asked me. Is that okay? Can I can I
Sorry?
ask the question that you ask Neha about how you feel when you
Yes.
are helping other people? So basically, Neha and I are like starting some kind of businesses like NGO. Like mine will be like helping women, like refugee and Yazidi women, and like writing their story because I know that there's like millions of other refugee girls that have been through the same and maybe worse. And I always feel guilty that I'm in a safe place. I'm with my family. Some of my friends lose their entire family in war, and that I just feel guilty that I survive and they not. So that this is helping me with helping the others. This is helping me to see that to less this guiltiness and to say that I'm helping. I will change this. Maybe if it's not for me, for my daughters or for the next generation, that they don't lose their entire family, they don't face this catastrophic situation that they are going through now. So helping others make you positive about life, make you believe, make you believe that you have a path, you are on the right track, you will be fine, they will be fine, and you are like hope for a better life, a better world for everyone, and especially the problem that you will solve.
Yeah, perfect. So thank you so much, both of you, for sharing your experiences. Let's like today, let's go home and for the next week, think about different ways in which we can get this dopamine rush without hurting others and without hurting ourselves. So it could be something very simple, such as you're walking on the in your society and you see a wrapper, a biscuit wrapper there, which you pick up and throw into the dustbin, and you will really feel good. So small little things, you don't really have to go and fight for the country, although that is a great sacrifice, but everyone may not be able to do that. Everyone may not be able to go to disaster sites and help people, but there are so many things in our daily lives which we can do, which will give us a sense of being useful to the society, and which will give us something called as ikigai. So you all have heard of ikigai. It is a purpose to our life. It is the reason why we get up in the morning, in a broad sense. So if we get a purpose to our lives, if we feel that I can do something, I'm useful to the society, I'm useful to others, I can help others, that is the best coping mechanism that we can have, and will automatically replace all the unhealthy coping mechanisms around us.
Thank you so much for your explaining your class. It was really, really useful and helpful. And thank you, Neha, for doing this. Really appreciate it. I'm so happy for being here with you guys.
Hi, Vaishali. It was very nice to listen to you.
Hi.
Very
Hi,
nice.
Aparna. So,
Yeah.
any comments?
Very nice. Very nice. I mean, very nice.
Would you like to
Thanks.
add something?
No, I'll be adding tomorrow, na? So I have my stuff for tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. So it also, it did give me a dopamine rush hearing to all this.
Me too.
So
Me
Neha?
too. And oxytocin.
Yes, both. So back to you, Neha.
Yes, thank you so much. It gave us a lot of good insight. And does anyone else want to ask any questions? Yeah. I'm sorry, am I audible? I don't know if
Yes.
I'm. Yeah. Okay. So I think no one else has questions. So if anyone has questions, just raise your hand or just unmute and speak, or else we can just conclude the session. Okay, I guess we'll conclude the session. Thank you so much, Dr. Deshmukh, for being here. It's really glad. I really appreciate it you being here with us, and I think it will help us deal with situations better now. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much. So can we sign out now?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So bye, everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Neha.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
This